Can you combine red light therapy with cold exposure? If you're doing one of these modalities, then chances are you're doing the other. Both of these fit in the space of improving your health. Red light therapy, as you know, is really good for you. Cold exposure can also be really good. But you may be wondering, can I combine these two modalities together? If I'm doing cold exposure, is it going to affect my red light therapy session? And if I'm going to do them in a certain order, should I do cold exposure first and then red light therapy? Or should you do red light therapy first and then your cold exposure? So in this video, I'm going to show you two studies on the science around skin temperature and light. And at the end of this, I'm also going to show you the exact protocol you can follow if you want to do both of these modalities. So first of all, both of these modalities are great for your mitochondria. Red light therapy helps them to make more energy, or ATP, and cold exposure has shown to increase the number of mitochondria in your cells. So logically, it makes sense that these two would go together really well. But what we need to first find out is what kind of effect does temperature have on your body's ability to absorb light? So the first study we're looking at is from the Journal of Biomedical Optics, and this one is titled Temperature Modulation of the Visible and Near-Infrared Absorption and Scattering Coefficients of Human Skin. So what's really great about this study is they look at two different things when they change the skin's temperature. The first thing is the depth of penetration, and then the second thing is your body's ability to absorb the light. So the first thing that they found is that when you cool down your skin, the depth of penetration increases. So more light will reach a deeper part of your tissues when you cool your body down. Now this already sounds great. So it means that if you do cold therapy first and then red light therapy, it means that the light is going to penetrate deeper. But the reason for it penetrating deeper is actually because there's less blood flow when you cool your tissues down. And what this means is there's less hemoglobin and there's actually less absorption. So the second thing that they looked at was the absorption of light when they cool your tissues. And what they find is that when your tissues are cold, they absorb less light, and hence we get this deeper level of penetration. In simple terms, when your skin is cold, blood moves away from the surface, and that means there is less absorption, and therefore it penetrates deeper. Now this doesn't really answer our question though, because by cooling your tissues, yes, you will get a deeper level of penetration because there's less absorption, but does that actually have a better effect on your body? So let's jump into the second study, which will help us to answer this question. So this study was published in the Journal of Lasers in Medicinal Science. The title is Photobiomodulation Therapy and or Cryotherapy in Skeletal Muscle Restitution, What is Better? A randomized, double-blinded, placebo-controlled clinical trial. So what they did in this study is they induced a lot of muscle damage after a hard workout in the participants. They used something called eccentric training. And I remember when I was studying sports science, we would use this. It's basically a form of exercise where you use a lot of weight and you focus on the slowing down or lowering part of the movement, causes a lot of muscle damage. In these poor participants, they did it in their legs, so I'm sure they couldn't walk properly for many days afterwards. And what they did is they divided the entire group into 5 different subcategories. So the first group did red light therapy only after the exercise session. The second group did cryotherapy only. The third group did cryotherapy and then red light therapy. The fourth group did red light therapy and then cryotherapy. And then the fifth group was a placebo or control group. So they measured 3 different things over a 4-day period. They measured every single day, and what they checked was muscle strength, muscle soreness, and then also for signs of muscle damage. So they checked creatine kinase, which is an indicator of muscle damage. So on the first graph here, we have changes in maximum voluntary contraction. So this is how much force can you produce. And on the bottom part of the graph there, you can see we have before, post, 1 hour, 24, all the way up to 4 days. So when we look at the bottom 3 lines, so we've got the black line over there, which is the placebo group, that's the control. And you see a very similar pattern coming from the cryotherapy only group, and then a very similar pattern coming from the cryotherapy and then red light therapy group. The 2 groups that were able to produce the most force over this time were the red light therapy only group and then the red light therapy and then cryotherapy group. When we look at DOMS, which is delayed onset muscle soreness, we find that the best performing one over there is the red light therapy only group, and then all the other ones follow a very similar pattern to the placebo group. Now when we look at muscle damage, so we're looking at creatine kinase, you can see that the placebo group is the black line again there, and we have very similar patterns from the cryotherapy only and a very similar pattern from the cryotherapy and then red light therapy. The best performer here with the least amount of muscle damage was the red light therapy only group, and then in second place would be the red light therapy and then cryotherapy. So to put that onto a scorecard, if we're going to rank them from 1 to 5, the last 3 places go to the placebo group, they go to the cryotherapy only group, and then to the cryotherapy and then red light therapy group. In second place, we have the people who did red light therapy first and then immediately afterwards did cryotherapy. But the number one modality to use there was actually red light therapy by itself. So to break that down into information that you can actually use, the best thing you can do is do your red light therapy when you are not cold. You haven't changed your skin's temperature. The next best, second place, was to do the red light therapy first and then the cold exposure. So basically what happens there is you get a little bit of benefit. You're doing the red light therapy, your body is not cold, but then by cooling your tissues afterwards, you actually slow down the blood flow, you slow down that metabolism, and as a result, you don't get as much of a benefit. What the data has shown us though is that if you do cold exposure first and then red light therapy, it's almost like the red light therapy session didn't happen. Your body is slowing itself down because of the cold, and therefore it's not actually using the red and near-infrared light effectively. So if you want to get the most out of your red light therapy session, you should never do cold exposure before, and you should probably wait an hour or 2 after your red light therapy session, so you're giving your body a chance to actually use the light in the best way possible. Now, I still think both of these modalities are great things. Cold exposure is extremely good for your health. I think on a mental level, it is such a good thing. I know every day when I go to do a cold swim, my body tells me, don't do this, and there's this mental exercise of forcing my body to do something that I don't want to do, and I would never take that away. However, I do keep them very separate from my red light therapy sessions. So I'll either wake up in the morning and do my red light therapy straight away and then do a cold swim like an hour or 2 later. But it's a very hard rule for me that if I'm doing red light therapy, I'm not doing it while my tissues are cold. If you have any comments or insights on your own experience with red light therapy and cold exposure, please drop them in the comment section below. I would love to hear from more people who have tried combining these 2 things. I know personally I want to do them at the same time, but the science is really clear that you don't want to be doing them together. If you have any questions, you can also drop them below. Otherwise, I hope that you have a great day further, and we'll chat again soon. Cheers.